Welcome back to another episode of Dentistry's Growing with Grace podcast. Join Grace and her guest of the week as they discuss lessons learned in the industry and explore unique insights into ethical growth.
Hello and welcome back to Dentistry's Growing with Grace. I'm so excited to have my friend Amanda DeMoura with me here today. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Grace. I've been looking forward to this for weeks, so I'm happy it finally came to fruition.
Absolutely. I'm going to introduce you. Tell our audience the name of your business.
So I own Essential Dental Services.
Essential Dental Services, yes. And you have been in dentistry for about 2 decades. Isn't that fun to hear out loud? 2 decades.
I've been saying it lately, like near 2 decades. I'm like, oh, geez, that just is making me feel a little bit older, but
it's all right. We've earned our stripes here in dentistry. And I know you've got a background in practice management and clinical dentistry. You're certified as a dental coder by the ADA, a fellow in the American Academy of Dental Office Managers, among so many other amazing credentials. So our audience is very lucky to have you here today. I know you're going to share a lot of great information. Before I jump into my grilling of the questions, tell us a little bit about why you started your business.
I started my business, I don't want to say accidentally, but I was approached by a local practice to me to help them out with outstanding claims. They had $500,000 worth of outstanding claims, and they were sensing some mismanagement there, and that certainly was going on. And I was able to go in, clean everything up, set up new systems and processes, train their staff to take those over and have some smooth sailing from there. And that kind of snowballed into helping other practices do the same. And then I took it remotely. So I was able to help practices across the country. So I think, my first office was in California, so about as far away as I could get there. And then now we just have offices in almost all states. But so it happened almost accidentally, but I have always loved solving insurance puzzles and specifically the insurance piece of dentistry. So that's really why I started, and to also help out struggling front offices, because I know they do a million things a day. This is a great thing to be able to take off of their plate because it's so time consuming. So that was my drive there.
I just want to say we look like we could be cousins.
Because of the blue eyes?
Because we have blue eyes and brown hair. And I'm just saying we look like we could be related. Let's start that rumor.
I'd love to.
Yeah, let's start that rumor. So I'm going to jump right in here. What's one of the biggest mistakes you see dental teams making when it comes to submitting insurance?
I would say definitely not submitting for what they're doing. If you ever take any kind of insurance coding class or whatever, they will tell you bill for what you do, but oftentimes they don't. So a patient's coming in for, let's say, an occlusal adjustment or something, they'll be like, well, let's just bill a limited oral exam because we're not really sure what the proper code is, or one thing or the other. You have to bill for what you do for many reasons. And that is probably the biggest thing that I see a lot. And some of it comes from the doctor's end, like, oh, well, just bill it as that. And some of it's also the staff. They're not quite trained. Definitely get yourself an ADA coding book. So if you're not sure what that code is, break it out, bring it to your doctor and say, what do you think you did? And what category does it fall into here? That's the easiest way to do it.
Awesome answer. And so it's a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of proper leadership. And it sounds like a lack of time sometimes too, that it's quicker to, instead of looking up what I'm supposed to be coding this as, I'm just going to fall back on the things I know. Why is this a problem?
Not billing for what you do. Well, definitely if you ever get audited by an insurance company, specifically that you're in network with, they most often will ask for, to start, maybe like 10 patients, and they'll want to see the patient's notes and sometimes other things, x-rays and such. And if they're seeing that you're doing things and not coding them correctly, that's a big red flag. Oftentimes you end up having to pay back a large sum of money to the insurance company because you weren't following your network agreement there to bill what you do. So that's the biggest thing for sure. And sometimes they
Don't hold back. Don't hold back.
Sometimes they can stop it there with, first 10
Fines.
patients, but sometimes they'll say, you know what, I want 50 patients. And it kind of snowballs from there. And then you're definitely flagged with the insurance company from then on, and they will most likely audit you in the future. I think
They might, come on, let's be real. They might make an example out of you.
Oh, yes. And, I see it a lot. There are some offices who insurance companies hardly ever ask for more information on a claim, and then there's some that they're always asking, and they're making it very hard to get reimbursed. So you are certainly flagged with them, and that obviously makes reimbursement tough, and you're going to see it in your AR for sure.
Yeah, but you could also go to jail, right?
And okay, bigger picture, go to jail. And there also are stories of, office managers being in legal trouble too, not just the dentist. I think that's a little state specific, but for sure.
You can certainly go to jail for this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yes, it's a fine, but it's also like you could also go to jail. Okay, I just want to make sure we said that.
Yes.
So why should a practice provide insurance verification to patients? Why do that extra work?
A few reasons. One, obviously that's a courtesy, but also you're doing your office, you're being able to provide them with accurate estimates when they're coming in, letting them know what their out-of-pocket payment is going to be. And then the reason I really like it and think that it's valuable is oftentimes when the patient's in the chair, they're in for a cleaning, and the next treatment steps are being discussed. They need a night guard. Well, is my insurance going to cover it? Of course, that comes up all the time. And then it's right there in your verification, depending on what you're looking for on there. Does my insurance company cover night guards? I need a crown. What percentage do they cover that at? I need, quadrant scaling. What are the rules on that? How many appointments am I going to need for that? How many scalings will my insurance cover at one visit? Like all those specifics, really handy to have right at your fingertips. And you're not going to the front desk and they're not scrambling to call the insurance company and be on hold forever, or go on the website. There's a lot going on at the front desk anyway. So that's tough for them to kind of do last minute. So having that right there already done for you is pretty invaluable.
Yeah. And I just want to say to my clients, if you're following, if you're working with identity dental marketing, we are working our little tails off to get your patients in the door, to get them to call you, to get them to love you and like you enough to consider you as an option. When they come in, we want you to have highest possible case acceptance and loyalty from these patients. And so this is one piece of that puzzle, is being able to communicate effectively to your patients what they can expect from you and from the insurance. Now, I think it's important that we also communicate that you don't control the insurance company, that this is an estimate, that this is an educated guess, but you don't control them. Just like I don't control Google, you don't control Delta. And you can do everything in your power to get a claim honored and to get reimbursed. But the contract is between the patient and the insurance company. And I even have a hard time calling them insurance companies because they're not really insurance. They're like glamorized coupons.
That's my phrase. I always say it's like a cheap coupon.
It's more like a coupon. That's right. And I think when you have that conversation, and look, the doctor can come to the patient and say, look, Grace, patient, you fearful thing. You haven't been to the dentist in so many years. Just kidding. I go like more than every 6 months. But They could say, we've looked at your policy and this is what you can expect to be covered. However, we just want to let you know X, Y, Z. And especially if you're an out of network provider, you need very strong verbal skills around these conversations, and you want to be as prepared as possible to be able to convert that lead. And a lead is a patient that hasn't really paid you anything yet. They haven't become an actual patient yet. You want to be able to turn that lead, or that person that's interested in your practice and your team, into a loyal, raving fan. So this is all a part of that process. But I get it. You're short staffed right now. I get it. There's too much going on to worry about this. So the good news is you could call Amanda and she can help you. Shameless plug.
Absolutely. Oh, no, I totally agree. You're right. You're working so hard to get patients in the door. You've hired Identity to do that for you. And you want to be able to deliver them that 5-star customer service once they're there. One other thing I want to mention about insurance verification is a lot of states, this was on the table in Massachusetts. It is called the Patients First Act, I believe. And that is luckily being delayed until 2025, but is basically you have to let your patients know what their out-of-pocket cost is going to be. And if it is found out or reported that you do not do that, there's fines involved. And different states are moving in that direction. It kind of has a different name in every state, but the No Surprise in Billing Act, et cetera. So certainly when states are making that mandatory, having the insurance verification, you definitely need to do. You definitely need to do it, whether you're doing that in-house or outsourcing. But as I said, a lot of states are moving in that direction. And I know in Massachusetts, for sure, we were all scrambling here for a little while until it got delayed till 2025. But it's
coming.
Looking inevitable for sure.
Well, you're well positioned in your business to help people handle that change. So that's exciting. So I always wondered with this, does it make sense to hire someone out of my state? I'm now based in Florida, just moved from Illinois, and you're in Massachusetts. Does it make sense for a practice owner in Florida to hire someone in Massachusetts to help with these items? Or is it going to be really important that it's state specific?
So not so much important that it's state specific. I think most dental offices, they probably already know, of course, you're going to have your state specific plans. But they also know that they probably are submitting to insurances in all 50 states. If your patients are working for a company that is based in, let's say, California, they're going to have maybe they have Delta Dental of California insurance or some other California-based insurance plan. So that is not always so important. Also, myself, as well as all of my account managers, are consistently taking new insurance training, really familiarizing ourselves with state-specific plans and Medicaid and all of those things that are pretty time consuming, can be a little complicated. So we're keeping our finger on the pulse as much as we possibly can. And there's certainly a lot to keep up with, but the out-of-state situation is not so much a big deal because we're already very experienced in submitting to plans of all states. So
awesome. Very good. Well, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. My next question, how often should a dentist conduct the accounts receivable analysis? Is this something you do once and then you're good?
Oh, no, at least monthly, depending on what you're really looking to see there, twice monthly, every other week. But for sure, what I like to default, as long as the AR is in pretty good shape, which a lot of offices it is not. So I would be running it a little bit more often so that you're really keeping tabs on the new accounts that you're seeing kind of go into that 60 to 90 day category, but definitely monthly for sure.
So I'm going to say things that people are not going to like, and I'm good at that.
But those are
I
my
think
favorite things.
I know, that's why we get along so well. We speak the truth. So I think that a lot of office managers are wearing too many hats. And I think they really don't have the time to be dedicated to some of these items. And I think they could really benefit from an extra pair of eyes doing an audit from an expert in this space. Because here's what I see happening in the practice. I'm the office manager and I'm really busy, but I've got to get this AR report done. And I do it, but I report on what I think is fair to report on. So what I see with employees after being in business for 13 years is I see a disintegration of processes. And I don't know if you've seen this before or if this is really a thing in other practices, but we used to do it this way and then we got rid of that column and now we just do it this way. And now we don't count those. We don't count those because those don't count because they're really hard to collect on. So yeah, we're at 98% collections or whatever it may be, but like that's not counting these other things. Have you seen this when you go in to do audits?
Oh, absolutely. And definitely offices that are like, oh, well, if it's kind of patient specifically, like, well, we know that person, they usually take this long to pay, or, they usually just take 8 months to pay their, so they'll kind of discredit some patients that they know well, or, this, that, or the other thing. They don't have a strong payment policy in place. So yeah, for sure.
They make their own numbers and metrics sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to say, I think even if you have a really well-trained, amazing front office team, I would say at least annually bring in an outsider to just audit your numbers and to just make sure that everything is still being done the way that it needs to be done. That's going to be my blanket recommendation. So
I agree. And also, that has happened sometimes, and offices really are doing amazing. And of course, I love to see that. Sometimes they can be a little few and far between, but those, they really have it all together, and that's what we want.
So since we're speaking unfiltered now, that's what we just crossed over into. What's one of the biggest challenges you see in working in dentistry?
I think right now, and am I allowed to say the word COVID, especially since COVID, staffing.
I have no rules.
Okay,
I have no
great.
rules. Yeah.
Staffing for sure. I think right now in dentistry, that is our biggest challenge. And I don't know where everyone went. I don't know where all the dental people went, but it is really hard for offices to find specifically hygienists, front desk to assistants, the whole thing. And that is really weighing on offices and making them very desperate.
I'm going to make a prediction. It's August 4th, 2022, and people are struggling hiring. They're not going to be struggling for very long. I think it's about to flip into, I call it an employer's market. Right now it's an employee's market, but I think it's going to flip pretty quickly. You might not get the experienced dental people who have went on to new careers, but you are going to be able to bring people in and train them up. And I think we will see a wave of new hygienists. I think we will see that it will turn around. But I think from front office employees and assistants and people that are trainable and coachable into these roles, I do think we're going to see people really looking for work in the next 6 months.
I hope so too. The hygiene, I mean, maybe that will take a year or two just because, most programs are that long. But this has happened before, and I've seen it before way back at the beginning when I first got into dentistry. When I went to hygiene school, there was at the very beginning a shortage of hygienists. So a lot of people went to school to be a hygienist. And then I remember finishing, and girls in my hygiene class could not find a job because there were none. They were all taken. And the same thing kind of happened with nursing too. A couple of my great friends went into nursing, and
it flips. It ebbs and flows. It always flips, just like the housing market. It could be a buyer's market and then it's a seller's market. You're always going to have these ebbs and flows. So do the best you can with what you have right now, but don't become hopeless. Don't become in this place where you're like, is this even worth it? I'm just going to sell my practice and retire because it's so hard to get people to work. It will turn. I think it will turn fairly quickly. I'm going to say 6 months for maybe not hygienists, but for the other positions. So hang in there. All right. And I'd say the biggest challenge in working with dentistry, I like to answer my own questions sometimes. I'd say the biggest challenge in working in dentistry for me is the lack of time that the doctors have to work on their business, to work with and find the right advisors, and to have the right support that they need. So I think because you've got this demand on your time clinically, and then you have this demand on your time in running the business and leading the team, I think there's just a lot of demands on practice owners. And so they don't always make the time to get the right advisors in place. If they hired people like you and me from the beginning, and they had that right support system, then everything becomes easy because they just ask the questions to the expert advisors that they've hired, and they can move forward without as much pain and suffering, which we see with this trying to figure everything out on your own is what I see a lot in practice owners. So.
Me too. And I kind of say a lot, like they don't teach business in dental school. That's not a thing. So yeah, it's tough. And certainly seeking out the right advisement and knowing who you can rely on from the beginning is instrumental in success going forward.
Last question, and Amanda, thank you so much for joining me today. For those of you listening, Amanda DeMoura, you can give her a call if you need help with insurance verification, claims, submitting claims, accounts receivable, practice management consulting, and support in managing and leading your team. Amanda, what is your website for those that may be interested in reaching out to you?
Yeah, so our website is essentialdentalservices.com, and Grace's lovely company, Identity Marketing, made that for us. I was so impressed. My website before was fine, but this was so totally next level. It really reflects me, the team, specifically my project manager, Mandy. And everyone I came into contact with, honestly, for various things was just so professional. Executed things. They're like, oh, I'd be like, oh, I'm having trouble with this. Let's say something on Google. And they went in and fixed it in 2 seconds. I'm like, I literally have been working on that for a month. But has been so awesome and just literally delivering the best service ever. And I am so happy that we
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, I love your website too. It's absolutely beautiful. And I'm honored that we got to help you in creating that. And so for those of you listening, like, comment, share, push all the buttons, do all the things. You can find us on Facebook. We have a group called Dentistry's Growing with Grace. We're also on Instagram, and all of our content is currently streaming on YouTube. So follow us, follow along, and we're here to help you grow your practice. So Amanda, thank you for joining me today. And to all of our audience, we will see you next time.
Bye, Grace.